Question 2. So our example is read P2. What are Connell's thoughts and feelings about dating Rachel? It's worth 5 marks. You must refer to the language using the text to support your answer. You're using relevant subject terminology where appropriate. So you'd go through the extract and highlight anything that shows what Connell's thoughts and feelings are about dating Rachel. So this is basically a how question. So there are 2 how questions in the paper 1 exam, but be aware it might say thoughts and feelings. So questions 3 and 4, or 2, 3 and 4, they might either be 2 questions that say how does the writer do something, or it might say what are the thoughts and feelings. It's basically the same question, picking out language and say the writer's intention. They can be questions 2, 3 and 4. So it's going to be 2 out of 2, 3 and 4, and they're going to be worth 5 or 10 marks. Okay. So if it's a 5 mark question, you're looking for sort of 3 to 5 quotes. If it's a 10 mark question, 5, 6, 7, 8 quotes. So in November 23, the students who got a grade 3 and didn't get the required grade 4, the things that the examiner said they did wrong were too much time spent on the low mark questions, so questions 1 and 2, more quotes were needed, and more quotes needed across the whole text. So to get a grade 5 and above, for a 10 mark question, go for 5 to 8 quotes, 10 marks in 15 minutes. For a 5 mark question, you've got about 6 minutes, 3 to 5 quotes. No PEs or explanations more than 3 lines on an A4 page. Explain how your quote links to the exam question, and you don't need to feature spot. So you don't need to talk about similes, alliteration, unless you're really making a good point of the effect on the reader. You won't get any marks for just doing a normal explanation and then also saying to the examiner, by the way, I know it's a simile. So like I said, plenty of quotes gives a student high marks. So these 2 students are actually very similar in terms of ability at English, but the one on the right had better exam technique, where the person on the left, it might have been a really good explanation, but because it's just 1 mark, they've done like 10 lines of explanation. If you're doing GCSE English literature, that's probably what we're looking for. But with language, it's almost about picking up the quotes and say why it's been used. So the person on the left just did 1 quote and got 1 mark. The person on the right did 5 quotes and got 5 marks. So try to think of it a lot of the time as a quote a mark. And like I said, you need to make sure you take quotes from all over the section you're reading. You'd get marked down for that because you're not showing you've marked the whole part of the extract. So even if you're taking 1 from the end, try to sort of separate your quotes out a little bit if possible. So the how question can be summed up by asking, why has the writer bothered to use certain words, verbs and adjectives? Why have they used these words intentionally or on purpose? So let's say the question was, how did the writer present Marianne in this part of the extract? And remember, adjectives are describing words, verbs are doing words. If this question was, I was standing next to my boyfriend, if this quote was, I was standing next to my boyfriend, there's not a lot we can say to it. But because the writers use the adjective jealous, it tells us something about Marianne and the boyfriend. Okay, remember, if the quote is obvious, you don't need to explain it. So let's say if we had the same question, and again, how does the writer present Marianne in this part of the extract? If the quote was, Marianne was very angry, just say, the reader is told that Marianne was very angry in this part of the extract. If you're looking for sort of 7 or 8 quotes on a question, you might be able to get 2 really simply like this, and that gives you more time to do the more in-depth one. So like I say, if you get a really easy quote, just pull it and bed it into a sentence. Okay, we won't do that. Okay, so the whole thing, what I tell my students with this question is, try and be a human dictionary. Pick out certain words and say what they mean. So let's say the question was, how does the writer show Connell's injury? And it was Connell shattered his leg. It's not Connell injured his leg. It's not Connell hurt his leg. The writer has used the verb shattered on purpose. So what does shattered mean? So if I went in the dictionary, it would say broken into many small pieces, impaired or destroyed, tired out or exhausted. So in this case, it's going to be those 2, isn't it? Because it's a physical injury, broken into small pieces, impaired or destroyed. So all I'm going to do now is put that into my explanation. So my PE would be, the writer shows Connell's injury with the quote, Connell shattered his leg. Shattered tells me his leg has been destroyed and broken into many small pieces. E.g., if you look, i.e. actually, look at my dictionary. Yeah, so always use the sentence starter as the question. Give me the quote and then basically tell me what the definition is. If we did another one, how does the writer show Marianne's feelings about Connell ignoring her at school? And it was Marianne acted normally, but she was devastated. Again, what would devastated say in the dictionary? Overwhelmed or shocked, disappointment, humiliation. So my answer would be, the writer shows Marianne's feelings with the quote, she was devastated. This tells the reader she felt shocked and humiliated. Again, and being that human dictionary, what is the definition? Put it into my answer. Okay, I got my students to do this as an activity. Again, there was a question about a house that Connell and Marianne went to visit. Abandoned was used. Again, what does abandoned mean? The writer used the word abandoned to describe the house. This suggests it's been deserted. Again, deserted is what you'll find if you look up abandoned in the dictionary. So our question was, what are Connell's thoughts and feelings about dating Rachel? Okay, so Rachel is the character that Connell ends up going to the prom with instead of Marianne. Let's read it through. He and Rachel started seeing each other in July. Everyone in school had known she liked him, and she seemed to view the attachment between them as a personal achievement on her part. As to the actual relationship, it mostly took place before nights out, when she would put makeup on and complain about her friends, and Connell would sit around drinking cans. Sometimes he looked at his phone while she was talking, and she would say, "You're not even listening." He hated the way he acted around her because she was right. He really didn't listen, and when he did, he didn't like anything she actually said. He had thought that being with her would make him feel less lonely, but it only gave his loneliness a new, tougher quality. Impossible to kill. So I've been telling my students to go through that, highlight, or you can pause the video, think about any quotes that shows what Connell's feelings are or thoughts or opinions are about dating Rachel. Here's an example that is not actually in the text, but this would be your structure if you want to have a go yourself. I've made up a quote that his pulse always fastened when she entered the room. And my answer would be, one quote that shows Connell's feelings towards dating Rachel is his pulse fastened when she entered the room. So pulse fastening, what is that sign of? It might be being scared, but it might be a fact that he's excited to see her. This is actually the opposite really of the extract where Connell's feeling very negative towards dating Rachel. Here are the ones I've highlighted. So I've done, it mostly took place before nights out, suggesting they don't really see each other apart from if they're going to go and get drunk. He hated the way he acted around her, so don't really need to explain that one. He really didn't listen, so he's not interested in having a conversation with her. And when he did talk to her, he actually disagreed and didn't really like anything she said. He had thought that being with her would make him less lonely, so he's trying to sort of make himself feel better and less isolated by being with her. However, the fact that he was actually dating her made him feel more lonely. So again, if we're going to be that human dictionary like we've talked about, picking out a word and saying what it means, let's go with a simple one. So he hated the way he acted around her. How does that show me Connell's thoughts and feelings? Well, if I looked up synonyms, or if I looked up in the dictionary, what other words could I use for hate? I've got dislike, loathing, disgust, grudge, resentment, spite. So basically that's how Connell feels about himself for dating Rachel. So all I'm going to do is put those words into my answer. So I've got, the writer shows Connell was unhappy with dating Rachel with the quote, he hated the way he acted around her. This tells the reader he was disgusted with the person he was when he was with her. So my blue is my question, is my sentence starter. My green is my quote, and my yellow is explaining my quote, explaining why and what that shows about how Connell feels about dating Rachel. Okay, the other quotes, have a go if you want to have a go at the other quotes. I'll leave them there. So there's the one I did. Next one, he really didn't listen shows Connell was unhappy as he is uninterested in Rachel's opinions or any sort of conversation. This is emphasised by the following sentence, he didn't like anything she actually said. So again, human dictionary, what does anything mean? I put the word anything tells the reader he literally doesn't like one thing that comes out of her mouth. Another one, the writer shows Connell was unhappy with dating Rachel with the quote, would make him feel less lonely. This tells the reader that Connell has no real feelings or affection towards Rachel. He's dating her to try to make him feel better about himself. And then I've put, however, dating Rachel has made him feel even more isolated and they made the loneliness impossible to kill. So remember, try to keep using the blue as much as possible because it keeps you focused on the question. The green is my quote for all of those, and my yellow is my explanation. So there's 5 quotes. It'll get me 5 marks. If I'm really, really quick, I can do one more. I've put, the writer shows Connor was unhappy with the dating Rachel with a quote. It mostly took place before nights out cans. This shows he only really spends time with Rachel on nights out. He has no real interest in seeing her at other times. So again, blue is the question, green is my quote, and yellow is talking about my Connell's thoughts and feelings towards Rachel.